Oh, we're live. Here we go. Here
All
we
right.
go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. So, System.debug level 53. Tonight, we are going to be talking about everyone's most favorite topic: how to talk to stakeholders, how to communicate with business and business minded humans as a developer. And developers don't have that same lingo. So we're going to talk about that. It's a soft skill, and we're going to talk about how you can kind of improve and best practices there, especially with Megan. She knows a lot about this. And that's what we're talking about tonight on System.debug.
Thank
Wow.
you, Zion.
We really need to get him to give us the the wave file or the MP3 or whatever the heck he's got for the
you know, one
podcast.
of us could actually just like go into the studio and get the file off one of the episodes. There's one of
We
us
could,
could just not be lazy.
I guess we could do that too. Yeah, we could. Or we could go to Ryan's house and just be like, "Yo,
Yes,
go to his studio."
yes. Oh my gosh, we should totally go to his house. We should make him play it for us. Like tie him to a chair, make him
Tie
play
him up. We got to tie him up for this to happen.
it. Yeah,
All right, all right, all right.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
this.
Okay,
I like the way this is
okay.
going.
And then we make him play the song. And of course, we have to wear masks.
God, this is turning into like a kidnapping situation.
Well,
He's
no,
gonna
because
have
after he plays the
Stockholm
ball,
syndrome,
then we leave.
and then and then we just leave. Like we leave him tied up. We're like, "All right, thanks. See you later."
We'll untie him. We'll untie him.
We're
Yeah,
gonna untie him too.
yeah. It's perfect.
All right, so tonight you heard the intro. We're talking about. Sorry, Megan and I are absolutely horrible at doing this alone. We're like two children uh,
Why does this
with no
always
parents.
happen when it's like a me alone with one of you? I'm feeling like
I'm
it's
just
turning
giggly
into
all
a
the time.
pattern.
I'm a child and I'm not a Salesforce developer, so I just like I'm always off the rails. Whereas like at
Like,
least if like one of you guys is with me, there's a little bit more rails to go on.
yeah.
But yeah,
I feel like I'm a bad influence because this is exactly
terrible,
what Brian said too.
terrible influence, worst influence ever. No, I don't know. I'm so bad at derailing things. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about how we talk to stakeholders and other business-minded humans, and it's definitely a skill that a lot of people need to kind of sort of pull a little bit more time into, or put a little bit more time into, I should say. It's not the easiest thing for some people, and I know I've struggled with it in the past to kind of get across what I need to get across to business minded individuals, and they don't always see the same things that we see, right? Like we're engineers, we're developers, we have these ideas of how things work, and we know mostly what can be done and what can't be done. And business people aren't in that same vein, right? They're like, oh, well, I think you could do anything. You're a wizard, right? So to them, we're like wizards, and to us, they're just like these, you know, slave drivers. They're cracking us and like, hey, do this work, do this work, do this work, make this happen, and you know,
So
that's us,
that's like
right?
two different things. So that's the developer on the pedestal, and then the fact that
That's
they think
true.
coding takes like no time.
Yes,
Like that
that
coding
also.
is as fast as like writing a sentence.
Yeah, you
Like
just
you just
you do
need
it
to
right away,
tell
right?
the computer to do it. Like computer, now do this.
Yeah, like it's magic, right? Like, oh, well, how fast can you do this thing? Like, it should take like 10 minutes, right? You're like, no, what? That's like two. That's like
As
2 weeks, and they're like,
as soon as you know what the component's supposed to do, all you have to do is tell it to do that, and it should do it. So it just takes as much time as you to tell it what it needs to do.
yeah, just so easy.
And it's like
Boom.
it doesn't really work that way. Like there's more there. Otherwise, like everybody be doing it. Like
That's very true. That's very true. So I know you've had a lot of experience with this, and we were actually just talking about this not too long ago in one of our chats. I don't remember which chat. But you
2020.
had some, yeah, you had some issues and stuff going on between certain people, and I'm not gonna like I could throw some bombs out there. But yeah, so you had to deal with that just recently, and over the course of my years, I'm sure you've had the same experience. This is a sometimes daily thing or a weekly thing, right? You meet up with some business users. They might even be doing like UAT, depending on where you're at. And you need to get across to them some sort of idea, or maybe the fact that something takes a little bit longer, or pretty much anything, any kind of tech speak, right? That you need to talk to them about. How do you usually start off the conversation? Like if somebody comes, let's make up a situation right
Yeah.
now, right? Somebody comes to you and says, Megan, I've got this new thing, this new feature. We've heard back from our users. They want you to add this button, and then they want you to add some email integration. So every time they do a thing, it emails everybody in the company, and that's what the button is for, right? So just something that they would think is like super duper simple.
Mm-hmm.
Every time this action is performed, email everybody in the company and let them know, and add a
Mm-hmm.
button that lets you like email them on click,
Yeah.
right? So now a business user gives you this use case that says like we need this ASAP, like right away.
Yeah.
How do you start that conversation with them?
So the very first thing that you're gonna want to that I would ask them is, well, first of all, I'd ask them if all of these people are in Salesforce. Like straight up, that would be my first question, out of curiosity, and functionality wise, because chances are not everybody's a company is in Salesforce, so you're gonna have to be thinking about the fact that you're trying to email everybody and get all these people notified with Salesforce stuff that aren't even in the system. Anyway, second of all, I want to know why. Like, what is this guy trying to do? Like, they're just because. So the biggest thing is, when you're working with people, and this is another thing that always happens, is, and this is a problem that consultants run into all the time is when you're working with people and they have this idea about how things want to work, but their idea about how things want to work is based on the fact that that's how things always worked before. And so they're trying to explain this process to you, and you're trying to explain this idea to them. And it's really scary to them, though, at the same time, because they've had this thing and it worked for them, kind of, sort of. And you're introducing this entirely different idea, and this kind of sort of works. So why would they want to change it to something that maybe not work at all? So you got to think about it from both sides. That it is. That's usually what they're trying to explain to you when they're trying to explain things, is how things are working now, like in the very beginning, or trying to throw in crazy, ginormous, extravagant ideas about what they think things are supposed to be like in a fantasy land when you're trying to ask them how things work now. That's one of my favorites as well. Sorry.
Oh,
Where are we?
So yeah,
Back to the button.
there's a couple things I want to touch on there, right? So number one, a great question that not everyone asks, right? When something comes down the pipe to you and you're there to just kind of receive it, you're a developer. Most times, I think a lot of people get stuck with that employer-employee kind of mentality, and they're like, oh, so this is just a thing that I have to do, right?
Yeah.
Something comes down, you get a ticket in Jira or a story in Jira or whatever you would like to call it in whatever system that you're using, right? You get something that comes down the pipe and you just go, all right, well, time for me to sit down and crank it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not always the case. A good developer is going to ask why, because there might actually be another solution in place, right? Already that this user doesn't know about. So that's one, especially if you have a large, like hefty piece of software, right? If you have this massive overblown thing, that piece might already be in there and they just don't know how to access it, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you've ran into that before. No? And then on top of that, or aside from that, you might have another solution to use there. Like maybe you don't need the button. Maybe there's a trigger that just triggers. Maybe it's not everyone in the company that needs to get emailed. Maybe it's just a certain subset of people. there's a lot of layers there for you to dissect, and it's kind of in your best interest to do these things, to take it upon yourself and to dissect what has come down to you as an order, right? A direct order. Take it, dissect it, ask why, figure out what the actual begin and end states are, and then again, there might be some other stuff in there for you to do. Like, again, there's a lot of stuff that you can take out of it and maybe throw to the side. And at the end of the day, when you've gone through and let's say this is a 1-day task, right? At the end of the day, when you finish the task, it might be completely different from what they sent you at the beginning of the day, right? So now you've done this thing that they like 8, 9, 10 times more than their original idea because there was collaboration between business and development. So I know I'm getting off track now, but that's how I see these things, right? I see it not as direct orders, but as a suggestion as to what they need and an open door for conversation. So we've got some stuff in the chat. Trying to make sure nobody's asking any questions. Yeah. Okay. So no questions yet.
Yeah.
So have you seen these things? Have you experienced these things, Megan? I feel like you have, right? You've experienced that kind of what do you call it? That sort of dictated process, and then you're like, but why? And has there been a time that has changed or morphed? Like, so let's say they give you the task, right? The story.
Mm-hmm.
How often is it that when you talk to business people and stakeholders about that story, that story morphs, that it changes at the end of the day?
Usually, yeah, most of the time, pretty much always. And the reason why is, it's because we find out that why in determining, what is it that we're trying to do and digging into it. Your stories they're pretty high level, and we adjust everything below it we develop what's below it to go along with what we figure out while we're developing those requirements. So kind of one thing to kind of go off into a little bit of a different direction here. Sorry, okay. I'm at a tangent. Watch me do it.
Do it.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things that I've realized was working with stakeholders in the business that take a little bit of extra time, but I have found to be completely worth it. And this kind of goes back to whenever I'm struggling with communicating, and it happens. Let's all admit it. We all struggle to communicate at least once in a while.
100%.
I talk in Salesforce. I do. I talk accounts. I say objects. I'll say custom setting. I'll say validation rule. Watch me say custom metadata type in the middle of a meeting. Let me throw out the word flow and process builder while I'm at it and have clients just be like, what? And it's hard. It's hard not to. We use these words and these terms every single day. All this kind of stuff is basic to us. It really is not anything that we would think twice about using. And we have to sit back and think these are people that are end users. They have no idea what we are talking about. Like, they know the tab. They know it's called opportunities and accounts and contacts. If they haven't renamed them, hopefully they have not renamed them. They may not know that things are called related lists. They may think they're the things at the bottom of the page or on the related tab. But you have to watch what they're using. Also, when it comes to their process, they all have their own names. They could be ARs, they could be AEs, they could be BDEs, they could be TMs, they could be PEs, they could have 10 bajillion different acronyms, all for the same thing. They're salespeople. They're just salespeople, okay? But it is absolutely worth it to figure out what their acronyms are and to like make note of them when they're talking, so you can talk in their language. Because when you can say their words, it helps them follow you. Because even if you say salespeople, they're going to be like, wait, which salespeople? And it's going to, just using their words, that type of thing, breaking down your Salesforce stuff to say on the account, instead of saying on the account object, don't say fields. Like try to simplify it as much as you can. Show the pages of like a record and use actual visuals if you can. Don't go into the technical, stay super high level. That helps them follow you much better, and it's going to make them like you a lot more. And it's going to make things a lot easier. It's when you start going technical that they're going to get lost. They're going to have 10 times the question, and you're going to dig yourself into a hole, and you're going to end up with notes that don't make any sense for any of you. And you're going to have a bunch of questions you need to go back and look into when you could have easily have just been, showing through 2 or 3 slides maybe, and have just have had a couple of bullets to say, and it would have streamlined everything.
Gotcha. So to bullet point that, right? What you're saying is take the time to get used to the business side of things, learn their lingo, their jargon, and then take that with you to these meetings and use that to your advantage. So when you're talking about something, you might say account object, don't say account object. Kind of refrain from using dev speak and then go to something that you know. So it's kind of a mapping or a translation of your own language. You're going to say account object in your head, but out loud to them, you're going to say, okay, so that's on the account. Right.
Or you can say like the company.
Gotcha.
Like simplify, if it's their first time going into Salesforce, say it's like your clients or your customers. Like break it down even that much. Refer to Chatter as like your Facebook wall. Simple things like that. I mean, it just makes things so much easier.
Chatter is your Facebook wall. Okay.
A community is like your little Facebook for your customers and your partners.
Facebook.
So they can go in and do their deals and their leads. I love it. And I can still socialize and be questions and like going to the Dell site. It's awesome. All sorts of stuff.
We have a question from Mark Adcock, who, and this question kind of plays into, hey Mark. This question plays into what we were just talking about, right? He wants to know, how do you handle it when customers don't want to explore what they really need and instead just argue for what they want you to build? So they're just it's constant pushback, right? And that's, I think, what a lot of developers call it is pushback, right? So, oh yeah, I've got this button. I want it to be bright red, and I want it to say these specific 4 words, whatever they may be, and it's just, I need it to be this big on the page. It needs to be 400 by 400 pixels, and there you're like, okay, none of this is going to work. You use all your logic. You're like, look, it can't be that big. That's going to take up most of the page. It's going to take up a huge chunk of real estate. What about the rest of the stuff, the forms, the everything else on the page, right? So what do you do in a situation like that where they don't even want to hear you out at all? Whether you're speaking their language or not, they don't want to hear you out, period.
I mean, if it's for like an entire project, I mean, that's the time to decide whether or not you should. I mean, is this customer really going to get what they need from this project? Will they really benefit? Maybe there's somebody else that would be better at helping them than me. At that point in time, I would probably ask for my manager to step in and perhaps speak with the client and see if maybe there's something that I'm not doing right. or speak with my PM, see if there's something going on there. But I mean, I would also, I mean, if it's just for a piece of a project, and at that point in time, I'd show them a mock-up.
Okay.
Like, and just be like, dude, check this out. Like, this big giant red button is going to take up the entire page. These are the downsides for your customer or for your end users. If you still want to do it, all right, let's do it. I mean, it is their work ultimately, so that's their choice.
Which is fair.
I gave them the cons and the pros. I gave them the cons. I told them what's going to happen. I didn't give them any pros. I showed them a mock-up so they see what the problem is visually. So there we go.
Okay, so that's a couple different things. So let's kind of bullet point that too, right? So one, you can have, I guess, like what would you call that? Like upper level management sort of step in. So you've got someone that you talk to on the dev side that's, managing all the devs.
And that's maybe. Like if I'm thinking like if it's like the entire project that they insist this is like everything for this project, they need it to be this, and they will not do anything other than this, and that whole design is awful.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So you can have someone with a little bit more power kind of come in and maybe talk them down. Maybe they're just not responsive to you because you're a developer. That could be part of the issue, right? So they could just think very poorly of developers and say, no, you know what these people are thinking is absolutely incorrect because they're just developers and they don't know what's good for business, right? So that could be an issue there. So yeah, you could have somebody who's a bit above you kind of come in and step in and take a little bit of action there. Again, your second bullet point was have your PM kind of jump in on this. And they might just be a little bit better. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd probably do that with like a single component too. Yeah, I'd absolutely go to my PM there.
Yeah, because
I go to my PM a lot.
they have all the business requirements, right? Or they should. Yeah, they have a lot of the business requirements, so they know maybe where this is coming from, and they can say, okay, well, you know what? What if X, Y, Z? And they're a little bit more business minded, and they're PM, so somebody might even if they have that same bias against developers, they might see a PM and go, oh, this person knows what he's talking about. He or she is a PM. They have business mind.
They're really good talkers. They're really good at communicating and connecting with people. PMs are awesome at that kind of thing. And they remember like everything about people. Like everything.
That's kind of what PMs are for, right? They're supposed to manage the whole entirety of the project and or product, depending on which PM they are. And then the other thing is, again, of course, as you said, just show them a mock-up. Maybe they can't think kind of visually like some of us can. So it might be a good avenue to travel and show them what it's going to look like before you actually go and do it. And then they go, oh, crud, I did not even think of how that would affect the rest of the page. Like, of course you didn't. You were thinking of all the other things, right?
Yeah.
So that's very good.
And mock-ups are really helpful. I love mock-ups.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not like you have to build everything out behind it, you know? So it gives people a nice visual. Yeah.
Mark has a good tip also. He says, one trick he learned in a recent discovery, aligning elements of the slides visually with the system. For example, they styled the business stages in a similar style to the path component. So they're thinking about tools. And then Doug wants to know, do we have any go-to tools like PowerPoint features that we would use for communicating things effectively? He says he tries to not overdo it, but he leans on PPT a lot. So do we have any tricks or go-to tools? Yeah, I mean, for mock-ups like Sketch and Figma and Framer and all these.
And it's got that whole lightning set too for components for Sketch.
Does it really?
Yeah.
That's nice. That's something that I definitely did not know. But also, again, I do a lot of Salesforce stuff.
Yeah, and it's free, and you just download it off the Lightning Design system.com site.
So here's a really good question, actually, again from Doug. Do we have any tips or tools to use to keep track of stakeholder personalities and or preferences when you have to keep track of a lot of different projects, like if you're on multiple projects, right? So do you have anything, Megan, that you use? Because I know you do a lot of projects.
So when I'm starting a project, when I'm doing my requirements for my actual like the users, the personas that I have for the project, I have a slide deck that I use that has each one of them in it for a slide with all their description stuff. But as for the stakeholders, I use my OneNote, and I just keep notes about people.
Nice.
And then when going through, and I mean, usually everything gets decided upon. And I mean, people have comments on things like Jira, so you usually know who's going which way from their comments. But no, I don't keep specific notes on that currency.
Yeah, I have to say, working on different projects as well, I don't keep notes. For whatever reason, I just kind of like I get a good sense of who a person is by just kind of talking to them a good bit, and I try to take stakeholders, not necessarily take them aside, but like during the day, if I see them around, just give them a quick chat. You can really figure out a lot about a person, and I don't mean this in a manipulative sort of way, but you can really figure out a lot about a person by just having good talks with them. Like go grab some coffee, maybe go out to lunch with them. I don't know how often people in our field do this. I don't feel like it's often enough, but just going out to lunch with people who are on your team and around your team, stakeholders, business, PMs, other devs, other smaller teams of devs, even that are going to be working with you, and maybe in the future, maybe they've already worked with you. Kind of going out to lunch with these types of people, it's going to help you out a lot because you're going to learn a lot about them. You're going to absorb that, and it's so much easier to have organic, natural feeling conversations with them about different things when you know what level they're on and you can talk to them on that same level, and you're not kind of like a little bit off, because when you're a little bit off with somebody, everyone can feel it. It's very obvious. Just in a way of like speaking to them. Like if you go in and you start talking about something and they know that you're trying to kind of talk up something to them, because they like it. They know that you know that. And now they're kind of like, they can see that it's off, and everyone can see that it's off, and it just makes everything weird. So if you go out to lunch with them, if you go get drinks with them, if you go get coffee with them, normal daily things, just find out about them and bring that into your conversational skills. And that's definitely going to help everything just be more organic. What do you think about that, Megan?
Dude, I totally agree. So I work remote. But the thing is, I am so guilty of being chatty with my team. So I'm on this project, right? And my team is awesome. Super, super cool guys, man, girl. And the thing is, like, we're all in different places, like all over the US and Australia. But the thing is, I swear I talk to them constantly, and I know so much about them. One of them just moved into a new apartment. One of them is about to move. He's getting a new roommate. He's got this whole workout plan. One of them just went on vacation, and there was a heat wave. All sorts of stuff. And the thing is, I think it makes a huge difference. Absolutely. And it's one of those things, making sure you ask about people's families, making sure you spend those extra couple of minutes on the phone with your team, have some chill time. We're starting Trailhead Thursdays at my company, where we're going to have like an hour every other Thursday where we get on the phone and We can, all sit there. We can work on trailheads and sit and talk to each other, study for certs, maybe ask each other questions. Somebody's working on something cool, they can talk about it and people can ask them questions. That ability to connect with each other. There's going to be a meeting for architects and devs and a meeting for the admins. You're welcome to attend, another meeting if you want to, but, splitting it up so that you get to work with your team. And I think that's awesome and it's huge. It's just a way for us to be people for a while. And I think it makes a huge difference. Absolutely. And you're right. It being remote, it gets the people that are sitting there all by themselves that, could feel isolated out on an island, that ability to feel like they're by people for a little while, besides on conference calls.
Yeah, that's a side of it I didn't even think of because I haven't done too much remote stuff. So, I mean, I always think about it as in person, but you're right. There's a whole remote aspect to this too. I'm wondering, so I guess before we wrap up, are the people who are doing the Trailhead Thursdays, right?
Yeah.
When you guys are doing that, are you going to invite business people too, or is it going to be
just us?
Just you guys.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking in my head, I know that there are a couple different things that you can do, and we've done these before, like tech tros, where basically devs break out of their little shells that we all have with us. We're all kind of bubbled in. We break out of our shell and we're kind of not necessarily forced, but if you want to, you can go up and talk in front of pretty much the whole team, which is sometimes hundreds of people, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of talk about, what you've been doing, what you plan on doing, goals, motivations. If you have like, what do you call it? Like Hack Time Fridays, stuff that you've been doing there, all that kind of stuff. You can talk about that in front of the whole team. And it's not just dev centric, it's devs, it's business, it's UI UX, it's anyone who's on testing or UAT, and which is sometimes business also. Like it's everyone in there, PMs, everybody, and whoever wants to can come to the tech show and just see what the heck is going on.
Oh, cool.
I think that helps a lot, dev to dev. Like if let's say you have two separate teams, I think that helps a lot get that communication between them, especially if one team is using another team's APIs or what have you. So that's what I like to do. So I was wondering if you guys are doing kind of similar stuff.
So no, not so much, but kind of going off of that. So we do the idea of connecting with with your customers, actual developers, and with their architects and with their Salesforce admins. I think that's a huge part of any project, to kind of like bring us back around a loop. But before we end that, also making sure that, like, I know it's weird, but when your clients are out, once they get back in, just making sure that you say, hey, while you were out, this is what was going on. Or if the client was out because they had a kid or something, making sure to say congratulations instead of being that creepy dev that never says anything. I feel like that makes a difference too. But to close that loop, that communication with your customers' Salesforce team, that at like the end of a project, I feel like that, and letting them know like what you did to their org, that ends up being like a huge conversation that like that you need to be prepared for, and that like they're going to be defensive. Like you pretty much told them to back off the whole time while you were in there, and then now you're about to tell them everything that you did, and they're gonna be terrified.
All the things that you messed up.
Yeah.
Quote unquote messed up.
And that you turned off, that they put all their hard work into. Yeah.
So we got a couple more questions before we close out. I think these are, well, there's one more question and one kind of plus one from Doug. Doug just says, oh yeah, I always try to establish personal connections with stakeholders as early as possible. And then one more question from Mark, which is, how important is it to be comfortable speaking towards the customer's vertical?
Oh, dude, I don't think that the vertical matters at all, man. Really quick about, I'm going to jump back to apps. Lucid Chart is awesome. Also, I would die without my Sublime. and also without my diff merge. And bringing it back, I do use OneNote as well. Yes, okay. But yeah, I don't think the vertical matters that much. I learned so much about their vertical while I work with them.
That's okay. That's fair. Yeah. So what you're saying is you're learning as you progress, right? So you jump into a client, you don't need to ask right off the bat, like, oh, let's be comfortable speaking about that right now. You just kind of catch on as you go.
I usually get a little bit of background before I start, but I usually learn the majority of it while we're working for the first client that I work with in that industry. Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, I don't know, like, what was it? 10 years ago when I worked with like my first finance client. I mean, you have to have a first time working with any industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I mean, I guess it's a little bit different from where I'm coming from because we always have to sort of interview with our new clients. So we have to get a little bit more familiar ahead of time so that we can speak to everything in the primary meetings. Like we'll have meetings before we roll on to a project and before we roll off another project and talk about everything that goes on at the new company and what we've worked on previously and to see if we're a good fit. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm not like digging and digging and digging into everything, every little niche thing that they have. It's just high level.
So I do like solution engineering and solution architecture. So as long as that goes through, matches up with what they need, we're good.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a little different outside the Salesforce world, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the weird thing. Salesforce is definitely a different kind of world.
So weird.
It's definitely a different place. There's a lot of stuff there already. And kind of, Mark has a question about regulatory requirements and how you might familiarize yourself with them.
They usually tell us about them while we're doing our build. That's the way it's always been for me in the medical industry because they usually vary state to state too.
Yeah, there's a lot of regulatory. We need a whole entire episode just for regulatory stuff.
Let me tell you about communities in France for medical and other European countries and their language rules about communities and medical.
What data you can collect, what data you can't collect, what data you can save
here, what you can display.
Yeah, what you can display.
What you're allowed to link to. Oh my gosh. I had no idea. What's allowed to be unauthenticated. What's allowed to be unauthenticated.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was insane. I had no idea there would be so many rules.
Oh man, there's so much stuff. You can't collect IPs over here, but you can over here, and you can't like without a license, you can't collect like location information. There's so much stuff. Anyway,
it is very
let's not go on that tangent right now. Bye, Randy. Sorry,
later, Randy.
we ran over by about 10 minutes. So anyway, let's wrap this up. Dude, this is all good info, and I think Randy's not gonna miss much since we're about to cut it off now. But,
what was the topic now, Isaac?
Talking to stakeholders, and I mean, I think we covered a lot of tangential sort of points as well. So I think we got it. We could probably do another one on this. But anyway, so let's do the wrap up thing right now.
All right.
Oh, here's a good one. Doug wants to know if next episode we can get Dev 1. What does that say? Maintenance trailhead tips. Interesting. Yeah, I don't see why not.
Well, we can't tell you anything about answers to Trailhead modules, anything, or how to do any modules, but we can tell you about we'll find out what we can tell you about.
We'll find out what we can tell you about. That's true. Yeah, we won't speak on anything that we're not allowed to. But it's a trap. Okay, so you can follow Megan at
Megan SF.
Nice. On Twitter, you can follow system.debug at system.debug on Twitter. You can follow me at the infamous RJ on Twitter. I don't tweet a lot about Salesforce. I don't ever tweet about Salesforce stuff, really. It's mostly Java, JavaScript, AWS stuff.
You can follow Ryan.
Yeah,
Ryan. Life with Ryan.
Life with Ryan. There you go. And you can follow Brian James at
US Brian 24.
28. US Brian 28. Man, we're so bad at this. We almost had it. All right.
Sorry, Dad.
All right. So we'll catch you guys next time when we get trapped into talking about some things that we probably are not supposed to talk about. And that's it. We'll see you next time.
We can always talk about Star Wars instead. And really good Star Wars lines.
We'll do what do you call it? We'll do spoilers. All right, we'll see you guys.
All right. Later, dudes.